In today's video, we're talking binge eating. What's up, YouTube? Welcome to the video. My name is Tyler, also known as the Fit Chemist, and I help young men take control of their lives by taking control of their fitness, nutrition, and lifestyle habits so that ultimately we can lead healthier and happier lives. So if you're new here, welcome. Please consider subscribing. Turn those notification bells on so you don't miss when I post a new video. And if you are returning, welcome back. I'm so glad that you are here. So as the title suggests, and also in the intro, in today's video, we are going to be talking about binge eating. So we're going to start with what it is, and then we're going to take a look at why it is you might be binge eating or what the cause of your binge eating is. And then after that, we're going to take a look at some strategies on how to overcome it once and for all. Make sure you stick around to the end of the video because I will be sharing my all-time favorite advice when it comes to binge eating, and you're not going to want to miss it. Before we get into it though, I do want to empathize with those of you that are struggling with binge eating because I have been there myself. So when I was doing my first men's physique show back in 2017, I was struggling with binge eating big time, both during the contest prep and after the contest prep. I got to such a low body fat percentage during that contest prep that my mind and my body were just telling me that I needed to inhale everything in sight. So I remember graduation day was one of my cheat meals or cheat days. So during the graduation ceremony, they had snacks out for everybody. So I was snacking on all those. And then afterwards, I went out to dinner with my family to a restaurant called Distill. And I had a huge mac and cheese dinner with a bunch of appetizers before. And then for dessert, I ate 1 pound of chocolate cake on my own. And what's worse is that since it was the end of my cheat day, or I guess it wasn't necessarily the end of my cheat day yet, when I went back home after that dinner, I was thinking to myself, well, cheat day is almost over, so I better enjoy it while I can. So I ravaged through the pantry. I ate way more stuff. I remember having 2 big protein bars that were the Gatorade brand. Those things are huge, they're thick. And I just sat in my bed afterwards. I was so stuffed that I literally couldn't even move, and I felt like I couldn't even fall asleep. Fast forward a couple weeks and I moved home with my parents. So I remember at this point I was still in the contest prep phase, but I would literally go hide in the pantry and start stuffing my face with cereal because I was thinking, well, if nobody sees me eating these calories, then they don't count, right? And I also remember telling myself, oh, just one more handful, like this is the last one, and I would never stick to it. I would eat like half a box of cereal at a time and just hide in the pantry and feel guilty and feel shame while doing it. And unfortunately, this struggle continued after the show. In fact, I think it even got worse because once the diet was over and the show was over, and my mind is like, well, I'm not dieting for anything anymore, so I might as well just be able to eat whatever I want. And at the time, I was living in Evanston, Illinois for an internship, and I literally went to every single restaurant that you could possibly want to go to, or like every good foodie place in Evanston. I remember one of those Saturdays, I went to this donut place called DB3 Donuts and got like 6 donuts, and these things were huge donuts, specialty donuts like maple bacon, Fruity Pebbles, Oreo, Cinnamon Toast Crunch, all of those. Ate all of those. One of the nights before, I ended up going to Giordano's and crushing like half a deep dish pizza, and I just couldn't stop eating that. And then there was another night where I went to a place called Edzo's Burger Joint, and I got a huge bacon cheeseburger, a huge thing of fries, and then this giant Nutella shake. And I just remember I could not stop eating. And all of these are just some of the examples that I can remember. I remember after the show, within the first couple of weeks, I ballooned up like 12 or 14 pounds. I put on so much fat during that time. And I remember being depressed because the physique that I just worked so hard for disappeared in such a short amount of time. So if any of this sounds familiar to you, including the uncontrollable cravings, not being able to stop when you're eating, hiding when you're eating, feeling guilty, feeling shameful, trust me, you are not alone. Now that I've shared my experience, let's take a deeper look at what binge eating disorder actually is, and then we can take a look at some of the stats revolving around BED. A Psychology Today article defines binge eating as consuming large amounts of food within a 2-hour period at least twice per week, combined with loss of control. Those struggling with this disorder often consume thousands of calories in one sitting, followed by an overwhelming sense of shame and self-loathing, which leads to further binging. So from that, I think we can see that some of the key characteristics are going to be that loss of control, self-loathing, and then the possibility of further binging. There was one study done in 2007 that found 3.5% of women and 2.0% of men actually struggle with binge eating disorder at some point in their life. That might not sound like much, but in a country of 330 million people, that is actually quite a lot of people. This also means that binge eating disorder is 3 times more likely than anorexia and bulimia combined, and it's also more common than breast cancer and HIV. So binge eating disorder is actually quite prevalent, even though it seems to be something that nobody wants to talk about. According to the NEDA, or the National Eating Disorder Association, they found that 40% of men struggle with binge eating disorder, so this is not just a problem that's reserved for women. And they also found that 3 out of 10 people who have attempted weight loss actually struggle with binge eating disorder, which to me signifies that the weight loss methods that we are trying to employ are not sustainable, and that is a major reason why I share all the things that I do on this channel. So why might someone start binge eating? Well, I think there are 2 major reasons. The first one being that you are on too restrictive of a diet. I think the main driver behind this one is body image issues, and I think social media does play a role in this because we are always comparing ourselves to other people's physiques, and oftentimes that's going to push us to extreme measures to improve our body composition. On these restrictive diets, oftentimes people are either not eating enough calories, which is going to cause them to binge eat because their body is sending them signals that, hey, you are not eating enough food. And then once they start eating food, their body sends them signals that they're enjoying eating that food, and that's one reason that they can't stop. Or you might have too restrictive of a diet in the sense that you have foods that are off limits. So this, in my opinion, is not a good idea, because what's going to happen when someone tells you that you can't have something, naturally you're going to want it more. Let's say, for example, you're on a diet that says absolutely no desserts. So no Oreos, no cookies, no ice cream, none of that. What's going to happen is you're going to crave that more and more. And then when you do slip up and you have a little bit, instead of enjoying it in moderation, you're going to go all out and try to eat as much of that as you can, because once you go back to your normal diet, you're not going to be able to enjoy that thing again in moderation. And then the second major reason is that you are dealing with a past trauma, or you're dealing with depression, or maybe something like stress or anxiety. Life is hard, and honestly, there might be situations that cause you to binge eat, such as losing a loved one. Maybe you're going through a breakup or a heartbreak. Maybe you're a little bit younger and you're going through some sort of bullying, or maybe you're someone who's just not really great at communicating your feelings with other people, and then for that reason you have to sort of internalize your struggles. And unfortunately, for a lot of these people, the only way that they can cope with those feelings is by eating. We'll get into the strategies of how to overcome binge eating in just 1 second, but my question of the day, which I want you to really pause the video and reflect on, but think about it, is what causes you to binge eat? I think if you take some time and reflect on this and identify the root cause of why it is you're actually binge eating, that is going to better help you address and overcome binge eating than any of the strategies that I'm about to mention. Now we can take a look at some of the strategies for overcoming binge eating. So the first one is going to be to tell someone. As we saw in the stats earlier in this video, there are a lot of people that struggle with binge eating disorder. So more often than not, if you go out and you tell someone that you're struggling with it, it's very likely that they may have struggled with it too, or they are currently struggling with it. For that reason, I just want to remind you guys that there's absolutely no reason to feel embarrassed or guilty or ashamed. I'm telling you, opening up to someone else is only going to help you in the long run, and that holds true for practically every struggle that you have in your life, whether that's going through a breakup or dealing with lust or a gambling addiction or a porn addiction. Whatever it is, if you share that with someone else, they will help keep you accountable and they will help you get over that problem. Strategy number 2 is going to be stop doing restrictive or unsustainable diets. I don't know how many times I've said it on this channel, but if you ask yourself the question, can I see myself doing this diet or eating this particular way 6 months from now, and the answer to that question is no, you should not be doing that diet, because that is not sustainable for you. If you fall into this category, worry not, because I have an entire series on how to diet sustainably, so I'll link that down in the description box below, and you can go ahead and check that out after this video. Whatever you do, do not put foods off limits. So I already touched on this a little bit earlier, but if you're thinking about making a list of all the things that you cannot eat, don't do it. If you make any sort of list or something like that, make it a moderation list, right? If you don't want to eat all that junk food, but maybe you do every once in a while, put it on a list, but tell yourself that you can enjoy those things in moderation, because ultimately that is not going to affect your diet or your weight loss or your body composition goals. And ultimately in the long run, it's going to help you because it's preventing you from binge eating in the first place. One suggestion that sort of falls under this strategy is going to be avoid intermittent fasting. So if you are someone who struggles with binge eating or binge eating type patterns, intermittent fasting is probably going to make that a little bit more difficult for you, because ultimately what intermittent fasting is setting up a small eating window. And if during that eating window you can't control what it is you're eating and it's causing you to overeat, you're probably going to be better off eating more meals throughout the day and not doing something like intermittent fasting. Strategy number 3 is going to be keep a food log, and bonus points if you share it with a friend. So that ties back to strategy number 1. I want you to write down what it is you're eating, how much of it you're eating, what time you are eating it, and in what setting you are eating it. The more detailed you can be, the better, because this is ultimately going to help you recognize some of those binge eating patterns. This doesn't necessarily mean that you have to track macros. In fact, if you are interested in doing something other than tracking macros, I have a whole video on that. So I'll put the thumbnail somewhere over here, link that time card somewhere up there, but you can go ahead and check that out. In the video description of that particular video, I do have a free food log that I've created for you guys. So you can go ahead, download that and use that if you would like as well. The biggest improvement that you can make while using a food log is going to be a mindset change. So what you should do is switch from feeling restricted and go to enjoying things in moderation, but also focus on nourishing your body, giving yourself the nutrients and the energy that your body needs to do whatever it is that you need to do throughout the day. Strategy number 4 is going to be pre-plan your meals and also do some meal prep. So if you're like me and you do all of your cooking in one go for the week, I already know how much it is I'm going to be eating at each of my meals, and there's not really any room to slip up and overeat as far as those meals go. Another tip that falls under this strategy is that when you are at the grocery store, only buy what you need for those meal prep recipes. If you buy a bunch of junk food and it is sitting around in the house during the week, you are not setting yourself up for success. Strategy number 5 is going to be incorporate good eating habits. Among these habits would be do not eat alone, because again, that is where the shame comes in. Don't eat standing up, so make sure you're sitting down for a meal. Before the meal, have a big glass of water, because that's going to help fill up your stomach, and if you feel more full, you're going to be less likely to overeat and binge eat. No cheat meals. So I've already mentioned it like at least twice in this video. Your diet should not be that restrictive. You should be able to enjoy things in moderation, and if you're on a good sustainable diet, you should not feel the need for a cheat meal in the first place. Another thing you should do is get rid of the all or nothing mindset. So if in your mind you think that you slipped up, do not use that as an excuse to eat an extra 5,000 calories for that day. And then the last tip within this strategy would be mindful of what it is you're eating and when you get full. So once you get full, stop eating there. Don't feel like you need to keep eating just to satisfy those taste buds. Strategy number 6 is going to be consider doing a reverse diet. So I mentioned it a little bit earlier in this video, but sometimes what causes people to binge eat is that their diet has them on too low of calories, and what you need to do is increase your calorie intake. I know this sounds counterintuitive, but I have an entire video on this, so I'll throw the thumbnail somewhere over here and I'll link that up here, but you can go ahead and check out how to undergo a reverse diet and help restore your metabolism. Strategy number 7 is going to be, if necessary, do seek help. Especially if you're someone who is binge eating because of a past trauma, or maybe you're dealing with depression, you might actually need to work through some of those emotions with a professional therapist or psychologist, and then that way that can eventually set you free and you can overcome binge eating once and for all. And I just want to share with you that if you do end up going to therapy or finding a professional to help you overcome some of those things, there's nothing wrong with that. I don't like the fact that in this culture there's a stigma around these mental health issues. Like, don't let that stigma hold you back from being who you really want to be and overcoming some of these struggles in your life. Now that you stuck around to the end of the video, I'm going to share my number 1 favorite advice when it comes to binge eating that Jordan Syatt frequently says on his Instagram and his YouTube channel, is that you are only ever one bite away from getting back on track. I don't know what you need to do to actually make that stick. Maybe you should write it down on a Post-it note and just slap it on the refrigerator or the kitchen cabinet, so that way you have a reminder every time you're going to eat. Maybe pack it in your lunchbox, set it as your phone background. Whatever you need to do to constantly remind yourself that you are only ever one bite away from getting back on track. Take that action, because you need to remind yourself that you are in control and you got this. Alright guys, that's going to be it for today's video. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Let me know in the comments down below. And again, if you're new here, be sure to subscribe. Turn those notification bells on, because I post new videos every single Friday and you do not want to miss when they go live. And with that, I'll see you in the next video.